Well, welcome everyone to Startup Grind Phoenix. My name is Lauren Baxter. I'll be your host tonight. I'm the director of Startup Grind Phoenix. And thank you to Revolution Parts for joining us. We will get kicked off with our fireside chat in just a minute. But first, I want to thank our sponsors, Poole Curry Law, which awesome law firm. If you are an entrepreneur and you need some help or want to scale, definitely the gentleman to go see. They are our main sponsor, and we couldn't do this without them. Miss cheersing a beer with Connor, but this will have to do. So thank you to Poole Curry Law. Please feel free to reach out to them, even if you have what Connor would say, a dumb question for a lawyer. He will be happy to answer that for you. And then also Downtown Phoenix. Downtown Phoenix is your go-to spot if you want to learn about downtown Phoenix. If you haven't been downtown in a while, there's some awesome new restaurants, places to live. Lots of people are migrating down there, and not only also a great place to build your business. So if you want to learn more, they have free resources in their office and online, and they also do tours of downtown. I'm not sure if they're doing that right now, but really cool. And the law firm is Poole Curry Law. I'll go ahead and enter it in the chat in just a minute. But welcome. We're going to kick off with that. Actually, one more thing. We do have a pitch battle coming up. So if any beginning startups are looking for some cash, we have some prizes from our sponsors, up to, I think, almost $1,700 in cash going out on September 30th. So if you want to look into that, please apply. Our deadline is the 23rd, and then if you just want to watch, we will have our battle on the 30th with the top 5 contenders. Excited about that. You guys, you can't qualify. You've already, too much revenue. On that note, I just wanted to welcome our 2 co-founders of Revolution Parts, Ibrahim Mesbah, who is the CEO and co-founder, and Andreas Ronneseth. Am I saying that? All right, yes, who is our co-founder and CSO, Chief Strategic Officer. Thank you all for joining us tonight. I'm sure some of you know we were supposed to do this in March at Revolution Parts. Something like this weird pandemic came across us, and before I dive into your childhood and what makes you tick, I just want to ask you both, how's it been going? How are you doing? Mental check-in.
Yeah, no, I think it's been a very strange year. Obviously, I mean, a pandemic, but I mean, overall, we're doing well, healthy, and have made a few adjustments, but we're excited about the future and just moving forward from here.
Yeah, no. First of all, Lauren and Startup Grind, thanks for having us. Really appreciate it. But yeah, no, definitely a strange year, but family is healthy, so can be grateful for that. All our employees and the whole team are all healthy, so grateful for that. So I guess just look at the positives, even though I know it's tough for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm happy you're here and we're doing this, so let's get rolling. So I'm going to ask both my questions to both of you, so you can kind of see, you can fight over who goes first. You're probably used to this. So the one thing I like to do is to kind of figure out what makes you tick. And you can't do that without learning about where you come from. And you both have such interesting backgrounds. So I would love to learn like where you grew up and what was it like to be you as a kid?
Okay, no, I can maybe start. And again, Lauren, really appreciate the opportunity and just want to thank everybody that's attending today. So really appreciate the opportunity to share our experience, and I hope it's helpful. But yeah, so I grew up in Zambia. So originally from Egypt. My family decided to leave there when I was about 6 months old. So I really grew up my whole life in Zambia till I was about 16, and then I moved here. So best way to describe my upbringing. So I grew up as an expat, right? So Zambia is in Southern Africa, it's landlocked. And really what was cool about that is I got to grow up with a lot of people from everywhere. I went to a British school, grew up speaking 3 languages, and in a really poor African country. So learned a lot about different perspectives, but also about how to do a lot more with less. So you have to be quite a bit scrappy growing up in Zambia in many aspects of your life.
I bet that's helped as a founder.
Yeah. Andreas, do you want to go?
I mean, we could learn about
sure.
me too, but
Andreas had the opposite experience.
Yeah, the opposite experience. He had sunshine. I grew up in Norway, this little Scandinavian country way north in Europe. Really tiny town. I think less than 10,000 people where I grew up. And I think, some of the things I remember, it is cold. It was about 3-4 miles to school, and I remember a lot of biking in snow to get to school. So I think probably some resiliency out of just kind of growing up in that environment, and very happy to be in Arizona and sunshine and palm trees for sure. So I've been here for a long time. So that was my childhood. I come to the U.S. when I was 18, right after high school, and started at ASU. We'll talk more about that later. But I had some family that had moved to the U.S. So that's kind of my connection over here. But other than that, I grew up there until I was 18.
And I definitely want to get to what the field. I went to Singapore American School, so I was an expat too for just a little while. But we'll get to that because it's quite the experience to come over to the U.S. It's a little different. So when you were a kid, were you starting different shops, or what were your entrepreneurial influences? Did you have parents that were entrepreneurs, or family?
Yeah. So when I grew up, my entrepreneurial influence was definitely my dad. So by trade, he was a dentist. So my parents actually my mom's an eye surgeon. So they originally were in Zambia kind of as an aide in a poor small city. And kind of when the contract ran out, they fell so much in love with the country that my mom decided to continue working for the hospital, but then my dad decided to go into business. So before I left there to come here, my dad had a dental clinic, a little shopping market store. He was importing cars from Japan and selling them in the local market. And he was doing a lot of stuff, including, I think at one point he imported a container of matches from South Africa because there was a shortage of matches. And it was really intriguing, right? Just seeing how he handled all that and how he was able to resell it and make money. And it really taught me a lot about kind of how to think about business and global economy.
He was a dentist on the loose after.
No, towards the end, that was kind of the dental thing was more of a hobby, and it was really more about everything else that was going on.
Yeah. Well, after years of seeing people's teeth, I'm sure he was ready. What about you, Andreas?
Yeah, I didn't start any businesses as a kid or anything like that, but but my kind of influence. I had a grandfather that left Norway after World War II. He was super poor in Norway, and he got on the boat and went across the Atlantic and ended up in Montana of all places. I went from cold to cold, I guess. But I mean, he essentially came to this country and he was able to work himself up. He had about 50 or 60 rental houses, but it wasn't just what he was doing. I mean, he would write me letters about, just sort of the independence and going into the business for yourself. And so really was kind of an influential figure in that he always talked about it. I mean, it was like a nonstop thing. And so, just kind of reflecting on that, I think if I went back and didn't have any of that influence, I don't know, right? It would have been a little bit differently if you just don't have that influence and just never seen it or had someone in your family to kind of push you in that direction. So really lucky.
Yeah, I can see where both of these played out because you are who you're surrounded by sometimes. And so neither of you created any little side hustles like selling gum or rocks or anything like that? No? Okay.
No, I didn't. I had, well, I don't know. I think, another influence that I kind of just think about is I had these pretty nonconformist parents that always, was always sort of outside the box for a little bit. My dad was a chiropractor, and, in Norway, they went and ran this like health clinic in the mountains where people would come and eat raw veggies for weeks. So I always had this like, a little bit of, it wasn't always the straight path that was the right path in my family in general. So just thinking about, I think that's just sort of funny to think back on, but I think it shapes some of the thinking that, right, like it's okay to not be on the traditional path and kind of do some things that are drawing outside of the lines, right?
Do you still eat raw veggies today?
No,
okay, that's what I figured.
Yeah.
So moving on, you're leaving to go to Arizona. How? And I know, Ibrahim, you went to a different school before Arizona.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your choice to go to college in Arizona. And I think it was it in Texas?
Yeah. So, okay. So college. Okay. So I went to a British high school, and the way the system works there is when you graduate high school, you're 16-ish, and you have your O levels, and then you're supposed to specialize and do these 2 years of A levels, and then get into college.
Okay.
So at the time, my choices were, all right, it's time to go to college. There aren't any really good colleges in Zambia, so your choices are you can go to Egypt, which to me was really a foreign place, or go to South Africa, or go to England and do your A levels, or I guess you can go to America.
Yeah.
So I'll go to America. That sounds really cool, and I can skip this whole A level thing. I can do this SAT test and get directly into college. So I remember filling out. Okay, so I got a book that had all American colleges, and I didn't know what the word major meant. I was like, what the hell?
This is before the internet, I'm thinking.
Yeah. It is before the internet. But we had computers. I remember we got computers in my junior year in high school.
Yeah.
And I remember using a word processor called Amy Pro. Nobody here probably remembers that, but
maybe Randy.
Yeah, I was really intrigued by that. So I'm like, all right, majors means what I want to do in college. I kind of like computers, so let me look for anything with the word computer in it.
Yeah.
So that was essentially my thought process. And then somebody my dad knew sent their kid to America. Same thing, graduated from my high school in Zambia, needed to go to college, so I went to America. And the advice he gave my dad was, all right, I found this school for my son. It is amazing. There's nothing to do there but college. So he'll be safe there. You should just send him there. There's no distractions. Yeah. And there was a little city in Texas called Lubbock in West Texas. And the school was Texas Tech. Yeah. So my dad's like, forget this book I just bought you. You're going to Texas Tech. I'm like, all right. So I went to Texas Tech. They didn't have the closest thing they had to computer was electrical engineering and computer science.
Wow.
And I was 16, right? I didn't know what the hell electrical
engineering was. The middle of Texas. Yeah. Oh.
That's how I ended up there. So I was there for about a year and a half. And yeah, I found out he was right. There was nothing else. It's a real little college town.
Yep.
And it wasn't the America that I saw in the movies. Right.
Yeah.
So I think I had a very different picture from what I ended up seeing in Lubbock, Texas. And then I found out that one of my friends from high school went to this really cool school in Arizona.
And number one party school?
Yeah. He told me about all the parties and stuff like that. So one summer I decided to buy a Southwest ticket and go visit my friends.
Yeah.
And I called my dad. I'm like, this is America. Like, come on. But my real excuse was, actually, I didn't like this electrical engineering stuff. I wanted to do computer engineering, and there's no computer engineering here. And I found this great school, and I get to be with my friends. So I ended up transferring a year and a half later to ASU to do computer engineering.
So, Andreas, you just avoided that whole mess with the Texas thing, and you just went straight to ASU, correct? And how did you choose ASU?
Yeah, I told you my grandparents, emigrated to the U.S. and so they started snowbirding to Arizona, and so we were visiting one Easter, and I sort of walked around ASU campus again, sunshine, palm trees. I don't remember the decision being like more complicated than that. Like, yeah, this seems pretty cool. Let's come here.
Isn't that the truth?
It probably didn't hurt. My parents were definitely like, all right, baby bird, you're getting out of the nest, so why don't you go over to the US? And so, those were kind of the two deciding factors for me. The choice of computer science, I really think, similar to Ibrahim, just a little bit of a nerd, and that seemed like the thing that I was just interested in doing, and had done some correspondence courses in programming, if you can imagine that, in high school, like literally writing letters back and forth to a teacher. So that was pretty much the decision. I ended up at the Honors College at ASU.
Before we get into ASU, like when you came, what was the biggest culture shock?
So for me, I remember an experience. Okay, so first of all, I showed up at the airport, and they had this program where if you're an international student, they try to find somebody either from your country or similar background to receive you from the airports. And I think this was in 1995 or there was some sport event that was happening, and he decided not to show up. So I remember sitting at the airport from like 6 p.m. to, I was a 16-year-old kid. Well, first of all, I couldn't even get into the country because I had to have like a guardian. Yeah. So somebody that was sitting next to me on the flight had to sign for me to get past this stuff. Then I showed up at the airport, and he didn't come and get me. And I remember like looking up, and there's a payphone. My picture of like the university was this gated building.
So you had to ring in.
Yeah, I had to like ring in, and here's my admission letter, let me in, and it was right. And I've never used a payphone in my life, so I had to somebody had to show me how to use it, call for help. But yeah, I think in general, coming from Africa where everything is very scarce, I remember spending money on pizza one day. And then I did the math, the currency conversion. And I was like, holy crap, this would feed us in Africa for like 2 weeks. And I just blew this. So there was definitely a lot of major cultural clashes or adjustments like that in the first few years, right?
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Andreas?
A huge contrast.
Oh, such contrast.
Yeah, I probably had a little bit of a different experience from Ibrahim. I mean, I grew up watching Friends and stuff like we had a lot of American influence in Norway. But, just sort of a funny story, in the US, I think there's definitely a sense you got to look out for yourself. And when I first got to the airport, similar to Ibrahim, some guy just grabbed my bags, and before I knew it, it was in a limo. So I arrived, and I didn't know how to say no, or give me my bags back. So I did arrive in a stretch limo just to make sure I came in style. So that was kind of funny.
You guys need to switch places in that story. You got the short end of the stick. So you're at ASU, you're studying computer engineering, computer science. How did you meet? Where did the magic start?
I think I was 1 or 2 years ahead of Andreas in college. So I think we met at our very first job, where I was at Intertel. I think I'd just been hired full-time as an engineer, and Andreas was our intern.
Okay, because I knew you've worked together so many times. Okay, so and then I know you both went to ASU for grad school. Did you do those programs together, or?
No, not really.
Okay.
So I think we both ended up at that company because one of our ASU professors contracted with this company, and he handpicked students that he liked to intern at this company, right? So we were both handpicked by this guy, and as part of we worked there, the company paid for our master's program, as long as
Oh, very nice.
cool. It's a free master's program, and I can
Yeah.
while I'm working full time. So it took me, I think, 4 years to get my master's because I was doing like one class a semester.
Yeah.
So we both, I think, got our master's degree under that same professor too, and it was really convenient because we could connect at work. We didn't need to go on campus.
And what was that first job like for both of you?
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, it was sort of interesting because a lot of people there did have the connection through this professor, interestingly enough. And for me, I think my first job, I felt like I worked with really great people. I really enjoyed the work, etc. But what happened is that company got bought by a Canadian company, and I sort of felt like they weren't going to invest in Arizona as much as they used to, especially sort of on the development side.
Yeah.
So I think I was there for about 5 years, but decided it was just time to move on and applied at PayPal. And PayPal had started a development office up in Scottsdale. So, you know, I think it was interesting to go from a telecom company that you know, just had a little bit different approach. I mean, it was started in the 70s and, you know, but when it's your first job out of college, you have no frame of reference. Like, this is your job, you know. I mean,
You're just happy to have one.
I felt excited about what we're doing, and I was getting a paycheck, etc. And they're paying for my master's. But I think coming to PayPal and just seeing the difference in how the drive of the people, the way the culture and the values of the company was, it was just an eye-opener for me, at least, to kind of come to that environment, a little bit more of that Silicon Valley mentality. We're going to change the world, and really feeling like the entire organization was moving in one direction. So I think just that contrast for me was huge, from kind of a first job out of college to a very different company.
Jet fuel, speed ahead.
Yeah.
Ibrahim, what was your experience like with Intercom?
Kind of similar. I mean, I didn't have any frame of reference, right? I started as an intern and went full time, but because this professor handpicked people, I think one thing, we worked with really smart people. There's a whole other maybe funny story to this, but a lot of those people end up at PayPal eventually because we end up recruiting.
Yeah, you just all flow.
Yeah, but I mean, these were, you know, basically top of class people from ASU into this company, did some really innovative stuff, but the company culture, I mean, I remember spending 3 months planning our next project because we didn't, you know, so it moved at a very different pace. And then going from that to PayPal, I remember PayPal, you know, they had a culture where they focused on hiring really good people, setting really clear goals, giving them all the resources that they need, and then really inspiring people to really go for it. And I remember being surprised, just like, you know, first month in, I'm in the Bay Area, meeting with this vendor, participating in the build versus buy decision. Then we decided to build, and like, all right, you have a quarter to build this thing. And I'm like, all right, so somebody believes I can do this, and oh yeah, and I am on the hook to deliver on this, and here's my team, and and people just go for it. Like, lean forward, don't be afraid to screw up or break stuff. There's a support framework, you have the resources you need, clarity on what success looks like, and just go. So it's I think a lot of people say PayPal's one of, they've really figured out how to build a culture where it's almost like a bunch of small startups within the company. So, you know, not really surprised by the PayPal mafia. I see where all that comes from, right? Once I'm in there and see the culture, but it's a huge contrast, like Andreas said, like very different pace, very different culture.
So you kind of learned the contrast of the slow, think about it, plan, and then just break stuff and move.
Yep.
And do you have any lessons that you learned from being a student at ASU or working at your first company that you still use today in your own company?
So yeah, I mean, being a student at ASU, I think it was definitely grew up there, right? Had a lot of friends and colleagues from different cultures. So I mean, the whole like inclusion and diversity and value different perspectives and collaboration. But also, like, I worked multiple jobs. I was a waiter at multiple restaurants while I was helping put myself through college.
Every good person is.
I mean, you really learn to understand how real life really works and empathy, like understanding the customer and having that empathy. And that really, I think, matters regardless of what business you're in. So I think a lot of people here that have to put themselves through college probably have had to work those type of jobs, right? And you learn a lot from that experience. So that's definitely one thing I really value.
Yeah, and that's probably helped your customer service today. Andreas, we're
today, that's a very customer value, and that's something that Ibrahim talks about pretty much nonstop, right? Is people really feel when they're loved, and they definitely feel when they're not loved.
Yeah.
So I think bringing that through, it's a big difference. It was interesting as you at the time, because now there's entrepreneurship programs, and I don't remember any of that. This was back in the early 2000, right? Kind of dating myself here, but there wasn't talk about that, right? And so I think that's an interesting just evolution, right? That's happened with universities. To really think about how can you apply your craft outside of just your exact major or whatever you're doing, right? Because entrepreneurship is certainly not, a one major exercise.
No, it's not like you're going to read this book and here it is.
Exactly.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but while you're at PayPal, you started your own business, Ibrahim, and you brought on Andreas as the CTO and doing some, seems like contract software work. Is that correct?
Yeah. Okay. So I can tell a little bit of story, and then Andreas can jump in and tell.
Yes, we love stories.
So I've had it was basically a custom. It was a company I created out of necessity, because for some reason, even going through college and right after college when I was at Intertel, I knew a lot of friends that owned small businesses. And a lot of times I'll get a question of like, hey, can you help me with this thing, right? And I'm like, all right, well, I need a way to get paid. I did some research about LLC, so I started an LLC. It was really a way for me, if I found an opportunity to help somebody I knew or somebody that knew somebody I knew, and it was a project that seemed interesting, I'll do it, help them out, make some extra cash on the weekend or nights, and do a vacation or something like that. I love to travel. So it was really that. And one of those projects was with my friend actually at Intertel's brother, who ran a parts department at a dealership here in Phoenix called Showcase Honda.
Oh.
He reached out to my brother and he reached out to his brother and he said, hey, can you help me with this? And his brother said, I don't have time to do this, but I know somebody that might be interested. So that's sort of how this whole thing started, where it really opened my eyes to, being kind of at PayPal and doing a lot, learning a lot about e-commerce and really growing a passion for e-commerce. And I was lucky enough to kind of bounce around within PayPal, so I got a really good perspective. I worked on the risk side and really understand how online fraud works and how to guard against it, and the payments and the financial products. And PayPal was owned by eBay at the time, so also got that perspective of working with a marketplace with multiple sellers and things like that. So I had a big passion for e-commerce, and this friend always talked about how hard it was to sell parts online.
I'm connecting all the dots now.
Yeah. All right. So I started solving some of his problems on the side, saying, all right, how about this? I'll solve this one problem, just updating pricing. Let's go. Yeah. And then you see him make progress. So Andreas, you want to tell maybe the second part of the story and how you got involved?
Yeah, how'd he lure you in?
Yeah, no. No, exactly. It was funny because at PayPal I got involved with a completely different startup, nothing to do with what we have talking here. But I quit PayPal because I wanted to join this other startup, which was a good experience because about 30 days after quitting, the whole thing imploded. The investors were pulling out. I mean, it was just a total mess. But, you know, before that point, I had told Ibrahim how great this was and was getting paid and doing all this
Yeah, you were
different
going to
stuff.
PayPal.
So
Amazing.
no, this was great, right? And so so when the thing imploded, I knew Ibrahim was doing some stuff on the side. Actually, I had no idea what he was doing, but I figured I needed to get paid somehow. So I called him and set up lunch. And Ibrahim told me this story later, but at the time he told his wife, "This is great. Ibrahim's, Andreas is getting paid on the side. He wants to meet up. I'm going to get paid for whatever he has going on." And when we met up, it was pretty much, I'm out of a job.
Yeah.
What do you got for me?
Help.
So that's how we got started talking about this. And at the time, Ibrahim I think you had your second dealership kind of coming on, a second customer coming online for this really early idea, which, like Ibrahim just said, he just did it as a consulting project for the first customer, and the second one was kind of starting to launch, and so that was the first project that I jumped on board to work on.
And when, Ibrahim, did you make the decision to go full time?
Yeah. So
and how did you make that decision? Because it sounds like you're married at this time. I'm not sure if you have kids.
Yeah. No. So now I have kids. I had 2 kids back then. Maybe 1.
You're like, let me think about that.
I'm trying to do that. So when Andreas, we met for lunch, and I'd done a little bit of research, and I knew there was something there, right? So listen, I'm helping. Actually, we both know this person because we're both friends, connected to this person, played poker together, right? So hey, talking to Ryan, I think there's a big opportunity to take what we're doing here and really help not just him, but every dealership in the country. So what was exciting about it is, there's the way dealerships sell parts online, and the tools that existed at the time there was a gap there. So a lot of car people saw the gap and started software companies. So I could tell right away the solutions that existed were pretty, we can do better. We can take a lot of our experience from eBay, PayPal, and build leapfrog a lot of these existing solutions. So there was a huge opportunity here. So Andreas bought in, and he's like, no, this. I think he did. He did some research. Like, no, let's give this a shot. Let's go. I've already taken the leap. I quit my job at PayPal. I don't need to go back. I can give this some time. So, so he started. So I think he jumped right in and helped onboard the second dealer. And the second dealer was Right Honda. And my approach at the time was, well, let me drive to all Honda dealers in the Valley and get an oil change and try to corner the parts guy and see if it's something they'll be interested in. So I got a lot of oil changes.
I was just going to say, every week.
But so Andreas like, I'll do this. So Andreas started helping, and he was doing it full time, and I was still doing it nights and weekends. And I think when I left PayPal, we had 11 Honda dealerships as customers. I think it was like a year or so later. And then we ended up ramping up our consulting business because that wasn't enough to feed both of us, right?
Yeah.
So we did a lot of consulting for one of the local companies, Local Motors. We built a lot of their subscription solutions, which was pretty cool. Till we got to a point where we could afford to not do any more consulting and focus on Revolution parts.
And I like that you're still staying in the automotive industry, so you're really digging in.
Unintentional, but it ended up that way.
Yeah. When Ibrahim said that I bought in, I think it's more like I had to eat, so I figure we got to try this one. But I think, making the decision to quit PayPal even before, Ibrahim and I got together, it was an interesting time because
you're on a high.
I remember going home to my wife. I remember going home to my wife, and she was about 3 months pregnant, and saying, "Hey, that nice paycheck that's about to be gone. I'm going to quit and do this other thing." And I'll never forget that she said, "Oh no, I believe in you. Go ahead and do that." But I think a lot of the thought process was really like, what is possibly the worst thing that could happen? And I think at the time I was just thinking, I'll be a little poorer in 9 months if this doesn't work out, right? I mean, I think that was kind of just where my head was at the time. but the motivation of not having a paycheck, I think, is a pretty powerful one.
Yeah, I was going to say, any advice, because I'm sure there's people on this call or people that will watch this in the future that are right there. They have this great paying job, but they have this idea, or they are working on this thing. Like, any advice for people that want to make that leap? Just be confident in your skills.
I think that's it. I mean, I had the same thing, right? I mean, when I left PayPal, we had 11 customers, not nearly, right? Not, I mean, and it comes back to like, what is the worst that could happen, right? Like, did I have confidence that if this didn't work out, I can, go back to PayPal or some other company like that and probably have a more well-rounded kind of background and like, I think we were confident that the worst that could happen is fine. I'll delay retirement by a year if I have to.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, so I think just keeping that, being, like you said, being confident in your skills and putting that in perspective, like, what's the worst that could happen? Why not give it a shot when you can? The stars are never always going to align where, all right, this is the perfect time to go on vacation or the perfect time. There's never a perfect time, right? In my opinion. So
definitely not this year.
Well, it's the perfect time for some things, but yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree with that. So you're revving up. It's just the two of you right now. You're going to get oil changes everywhere. How does this continue to progress? What's the next big milestone in this company?
You mean like from today or from the oil change days?
No, from the oil change days. Yeah, let's stick with that for a minute, and then we're going to go to today.
No, okay.
We can't go from like
we didn't really have a marketing strategy. Actually, I see Amanda on the call. She was our maybe first breakthrough there. So we were heads down building our Revolution parts essentially, right? It wasn't called Revolution parts at the time, so doing oil changes, adding more dealers. Our marketing strategy at the time was...
What was it called?
It was a consulting company. We hadn't really...
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So even when we formed Revolution Parts, so our marketing strategy at the time was just a link at the bottom of our website.
Yeah.
And then one thing that we did well, so Andreas and I somehow got connected with, by the way, I see Randy on the call too, from the IC, but we got involved with the local tech community, right? And Randy and Mario and Miguel and others were a big part of that. So we participated in Venture Madness and all these other events, but which were awesome because they really connected us with the right people in the tech scene. One of those people was the CEO of WebPT, Paul Andy. And he's still today like one of our really good advisors. But one thing he suggested was, all right, you guys are building the product. Why don't you hire somebody on the marketing side?
Yeah.
I think our first hire was in support, just to take care of our, we had less than 20 customers. We hired a support person while we're heads down building the product. And
hands on keyboard. You guys are doing it.
And then I think, so it was very odd to me. I'm like, marketing, that's interesting. Why marketing? I didn't really understand what marketing was. So just to back up, I mean, we're both engineers, first-time entrepreneurs, so we had to learn a lot about business, right, on the job. So it's like, you should really invest in marketing. So we met Amanda, and she somehow convinced her to join us, but doing marketing, and I started getting really busy with demos. And before, all we had was a link on our website, so every once in a while I'd get an inbound request, and it was really annoying because I'm like, all right, I need to build a product, focus on my consulting business, now I need to take time out and show you this thing, right? But anyway, so Amanda did her magic, and marketing started working, started getting leads and doing more demos. Then eventually hired a salesperson to take the demos away when I was really busy doing demos. Yeah, so that's sort of how it started. Andreas, I don't know if you want
to. Now you know marketing is magic.
Yeah, so marketing is magic is the takeaway.
Props to Amanda.
Do that before you do sales so essentially our trajectory was support person, a front-end engineer, because Andreas and I were back-end engineers, and that's one area we really sucked at. And we relied on a lot of contractors. Going back to the scrappiness, we worked with a ton of contractors to get stuff done, right, in the early days. Actually, we still do till today. But then, yeah, it was marketing after that.
Wow, that's good for people to hear.
Yeah.
Now, you guys bootstrapped for a very long time until you just raised a small raise right now. But what was the decision behind that? How did you go about that? So many people are mystified about raising money and when to raise money and why. So can you tell us a little bit about your thoughts behind that?
Yeah, so what I would say is initially, frankly, we didn't really think about that. I think we were lucky enough where we were heads down building, and we actually won the AIC, which was super helpful. It was like $250,000 in non-dilutive capital, came in at an amazing time.
Yeah.
But we had to okay, in my opinion, and hopefully people agree with this, but it is really hard to build a $10 million business bootstrapped. It's really hard.
Yeah. And
it's really hard because you really have to, our approach at the time was, all right, we're engineers, so let's build this amazing spreadsheet with like 35 tabs, and you can build all these projections and models, and like, all right, we can afford to hire one person now. Let's do that. Which person should we hire, right? When you're bootstrapped, a lot of the hiring you're doing is you're typically expecting people to have 5 slashes in their title. Like, you can be really good at, like these 5 things because these are, so your expectation is that these people are going to be Swiss Army knives, be really scrappy, and not just be tactical, but be tactical and also help come up with a plan in whatever the area is, and maybe help with hiring and help with. So, and I think this is, it's pretty painful, to be completely honest, right? Because a lot of times you have to, we end up making these decisions and bring people on, and the company's evolving, and these were just some of the growing pains and learnings, like from my side and Andreas, and just like figuring out who do we need. Hiring is hard, but I think hiring is especially harder when you're growing and you're bootstrapped.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would say it's been a great experience, but I think we've learned a lot over the years. And this year, so we closed our round right before, literally like March 6th or March 9th or something like that, right before. So we didn't even.
Timing.
I think I might have been refreshing, like, my online bank account, and I think it was March 9th around 10 a.m. probably the money.
Yeah, and I was in Portugal refreshing from over there too. We managed to get back on the last flight back to the US before everything shut down. So that was a good experience. But so I think it comes back to, we've been talking to these investors for a couple of years, and they're automotive investors, and we felt that, all right, now's the time. We're really more optimistic about our ability to accelerate our growth and really capture. There's a huge opportunity. So I don't think we ever talked about this, but if anybody, just a quick, Revolution Parts, we build Shopify for car dealerships. So we make it super easy for car dealerships to start selling online, either on their website or across marketplaces, eBay, Amazon, Walmart. And our purpose is to really transform the way parts buyers and sellers connect. So it's a really fragmented experience today. I think Amazon solved the way buyers and sellers connect on the retail side, right? So we see, buying parts is a lot more complex than that. So we see that's the opportunity that we're trying to go after. And we felt that the timing was right. The vision was clear. We had a really good foundation, and it was time to start a relationship with an investor in the industry that could really accelerate growth. So we closed around, COVID hit, which really changed everything. And now we're super optimistic about the future and starting to rebuild and grow again.
Yeah, absolutely. Good, the timing on that. Woo!
Yeah.
Yeah. Lauren, I think it's interesting that you say, what was the decision to bootstrap? I think...
Doesn't sound like it was a decision. It was like, we're just going to go.
Well, Yeah, it was, you sort of slide into it, right? And you say, well, wow, we can still continue to grow, and we're raising money from our customers every month. I mean, that's essentially what you end up doing, right? There's no other outside funding capital. I think Ibrahim and I have talked, if we were to do it again, would we have raised money earlier, right? Would that have been an easier path, or we could have gone faster? I don't think we have any specific regrets, but I think, knowing what we know now, and let's say and sometime in the future, if we start another company, we might have raised money earlier, but you're never in the same place at the same time again, right? And so I think, especially being first-time founders, really just figuring it out, right? I think for us, bootstrapping and just sort of feeling like we had control over what was going on was probably part of us just continuing, but now being very excited that, getting someone from the outside to get involved and for us to have the resources to continue to grow more rapidly was the right thing.
And I like that. What I picked up on is that you had been courting these people, not when you needed the money, but before. Like, hey, this is what we're doing. Like, we don't need your money, but this is what we're doing. So that might be some good advice to other people to hear.
Yeah.
That's right. That's when you want to raise the money, when you need the least, right? That's when
not like, hey, it's so good.
It's always the best time when you're really desperate. I think everyone can smell that.
Just like dating.
Away, right?
And I think it's really helpful because, like, that's a really important point because they kind of, when we started talking to these guys, it was a couple of years ago. So they've seen us say, all right, here's where we're going. And then we go there. All right, here's where we're going. We're not ready yet to take your money, but we're going there. So they kind of see the traction and, wow, these guys are executing. So it makes the decision a lot easier when we're ready, right? Versus, so that helps a lot.
So on that point, we have about 10 more minutes, then we'll go to some audience questions. But how has COVID changed your business? Obviously, there might have been just like a delay, but what does it look like now, and what are you excited to move forward with in the next couple of years?
Yeah, so from an e-commerce perspective, right after the stimulus checks went out, we saw a huge spike, right? So what COVID's done is, and not just Revolution Parts, but a lot of other businesses, it's really accelerated consumer behavior to shop online, which really helps Revolution Parts too, because we're in the business of doing that. It's also accelerating a lot of discussions we're having with manufacturers. So we just haven't announced this yet either, but we just signed. We're now powering Mercedes-Benz official U.S. parts store. That should be announced.
Wow! Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. So, on the business side, I mean, we're having to really adjust, right? So it's COVID. You can't expect 100% from anybody, right? We're all working from home and our kids are not going to school, right? So everybody's working from home. We reopened the office after the stay orders were lifted here in Arizona. But essentially what we told our team is we're going to be flexible through April of next year. So please make the best decision for you and your family, which I think having that not be a question is important to just reinforce. We've always been, I'd say, more biased to hiring talent here in the Phoenix area. But what COVID's taught us is we could kind of cast a wider net and really be open to talent wherever we can, right? So, we had to be very accommodating to customers right after the pandemic hit, right? So our industry got impacted pretty badly. So we had to be accommodating in terms of really understanding the customer and being there for them when they need help. And that's think about like a lot of discounts and bill forgiveness and flexibility with terms and things like that, which actually was pretty painful for us, but it's the right thing to do, which I think will pay dividends long term. So we're seeing things stabilize. We're still and really excited about kind of moving forward and looking ahead and hopefully for record-breaking 2021.
Andreas, what are you excited about?
That's the goal. Yeah, no, it was, March was a scary month. I mean, our customers, all of the people that we interacted with, they were furloughing the entire department, like the people that we would talk to on a daily basis as our direct customer. And so, but there was also some really good stories. We had one customer that essentially, there was no business at the dealership, but online orders kept coming in, and he was able to convince his management to essentially keep his job so he could continue to fulfill orders. So that was like just a really, and everything's going on, and you hear, our product is essentially continuing someone's job, which is just an amazing story to hear. So, I mean, we can count ourselves lucky that we're in a business that it's fine. Everyone can work from home. We can still be productive, right? And on top of that e-commerce is really doing well. So, we are very grateful for kind of being in that industry, that we're able to continue to keep going. And like Ibrahim says, actually looking forward to a record-breaking 2020.
One of before we do some advice and rapid fire questions, you obviously stayed in Arizona. You haven't moved. What can we do as a community to help you, and why Arizona? Like, what do you like about being here in the community?
Yeah, so I mean, I can't say I've lived in many other places in the country in terms of like running or starting a business or anything like that. But
except for that, Texas. You lived in Texas.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I've always been super amazed at how gracious, I talked about Venture Madness and the AIC and the Startup AZ and a lot of, Startup Grind and the Yes Phoenix. I mean, and a lot of local entrepreneurs. The community's changed quite a bit since we started. And it's just, and then you think about all the co-working spaces. I mean, one interesting fact is we didn't really get our own office till about 2 years ago now, less than 2 years ago. So we've really relied on, I think we were at almost every co-working space in the Valley, and the support system has been amazing, right? So I've always been amazed at how accessible a lot of talent here is, right? I can't tell you how many coffees I've had with other entrepreneurs and other people from whether it's co-working spaces or tech scenes or and just all the advice that I've gotten, and I think it's been super helpful, and it's a super supportive community. Arizona is also a lot more affordable than a lot of other places in the country, so starting and building a business here, I think we're pretty lucky. Just talking to some of my friends in the Bay Area, for example, that I think on average entrepreneurs there raise $10 million for every $1 million in revenue.
Wow. And they live in little boxes too.
Yeah, no, exactly. So we're able to be here in Arizona. We don't have to deal with a lot of some of the natural disasters and fires and things like that, but also it's affordable. And if I need to go to the Bay Area, it's a really short flight away. I don't know. I feel pretty lucky. I feel like it's almost like a secret how good we have it here, to be honest.
Especially come October.
Yeah. Andreas, I don't know if you want to add anything there, but.
Yeah, no, I just remember, Tuft Needle, they came from Silicon, right? The founders of Tuft Needle came here, and they made this point over and over again. Like, this is great. We can, we can do so much more here, and great talent and a great place to live. So I think, we've never even discussed really going anywhere else, because we've had a great experience and we love living in Arizona. So why go anywhere else?
Good plug for Arizona. We're gonna have to pass this video along. So before I get to some rapid fire, just to learn a little bit more about you, and audience, please put your questions in the chat. We'll ask them if you have any. What advice would you have for a new founder? Like, what maybe top piece of advice that you have?
Maybe I'll start with just connect with local founders, get involved. I think it's super helpful to just tell your story, get different perspectives. And I think you'll learn more about your business. You'll think about different angles. You'll network with them. So yeah, so I would definitely expect being out there more.
Yeah, I think my, I think being an entrepreneur, you really have to have an open mind. And, I think the negative things that you hear, or if you hear something that maybe isn't aligned with the way you view things, right? Like, I think those are the biggest takeaways you can take, right? Getting a new perspective, it can really change the path of what you're doing. And so I think, if someone is critical of your idea, or, right, I think really taking that, processing, and really thinking about what they're telling you. They might not be right? But at least processing it and taking it into consideration every day. I mean, even now, I feel like I learn new things from just connecting and really listening to people. That is just completely invaluable, and it's also completely free. Right, to when people give their time to you. So I would just echo what Ibrahim said there, and I think that's been a big part of our success.
Taking a little bit of the ego out. I like the listening part. Yeah.
That's right.
Oh yeah.
Well, you need a little bit of ego, right, to like really believe in your idea and continue. I remember, when we first started, a friend of mine was like, "Well, is there really any money? What, who's going to pay for that? What?" So you're always going to have doubters, so you can't take all of that to heart, but at least process it, right?
Oh, I could just see him. You're selling parts.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Now you're like, what were you saying about that idea?
Yeah.
Well, just to get to know you a little bit more personally, I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions, which mean you just blurt out the first thing that comes to your mind. So, favorite country you've ever visited?
Italy.
Oh, man, that's a salty wound. I was supposed to go to Italy this year. Oh.
I'm sorry. I'll change. Great.
Favorite restaurant in the Valley?
Spiga.
Ooh, haven't been to that one. Favorite app?
It's in Tempe. It's a Italian.
Vincitorius. I'm going to write that down. Favorite app on your phone?
Gmail or LinkedIn?
I think Zillow. I'm pretty big fan of Zillow.
Oh, also a real estate agent right down there.
buy a house?
Yes.
Let's see.
Yeah, maybe that's just right now.
A hobby that you've always wanted to start? Nope. Okay. Bucket light.
No,
You're like, we will be doing the keyboarding still. Let's see. Last one is sushi or tacos?
Sushi for me.
Oh, sushi all the way.
Yeah, that's one thing I've missed. That's one thing I'm not making at home. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you so much. Is there anything else that you'd like to add, to share? And audience, if you have a question, pop it in the chat.
Yeah, shoot. We'd love to hear a question if anyone has any.
Because if they don't, I'll fill some time with questions. I always have more. Now, while they're thinking, you both are married with children. I'm the wife of an entrepreneur. How do your wives survive?
How do the wives survive?
Oh my God, stuff on there.
We've I mean, my wife's
you need support at home, right? I think No, you go ahead, Ibrahim.
No, I mean, you do need support. I think we've worked out a system, right, where I don't do any work on Saturdays, so that's like family time, and then we try to take, and this was pre-COVID, but we try to take a bunch of 4-day weekends where I'll take Thursday, Friday, plus the weekends, and do shorter trips. So I think it's easier to do a lot more of those.
Yeah, absolutely. Andreas, what were you going to say?
Yeah, for sure. I think with everyone else, right, like especially with home, it's been even tougher than it was before, but just take it back to believe in you, so let's figure this out, how we're going to make this work. And that was 10 years ago, so that's good stuff.
Wow. Well, you both sound like very lucky men to have support. So I'm going to start to read off some of these good questions. We have some questions moving in. Diana says, what's the toughest business decision you've had to make so far? I wonder if you'll say the same thing.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, I could start. So when COVID hit, so remember we just closed this round, but the industry got hit pretty bad, right? So just listening to our investors and trying to do the right thing, I mean, we had to make some tough decisions there. And that was really tough because it's not something we'd ever done since we started the business. And essentially what we saw is deal flow completely dried up. We weren't getting any new customers. The industry was forecasting an 80% contraction. So essentially what we decided to do was just align as a team with our investors on what the worst case scenario could look like and make sure that we come out of that stronger. So we had to make some really tough decisions, including some pay cuts, we had to part ways with some people. And that was probably the most painful thing would ever had to do in our lives. And now we're rebuilding. So it's beyond just a business decision.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you're an entrepreneur and growth is really in your blood, right? And all you're thinking about, right? Just having to, I agree with you, Ibrahim. That was absolutely the roughest time.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially impacting people's lives. It's tough. So Kim wants to know, what's your next business? Ooh, Kim's moving ahead.
We really are, we believe this is a huge opportunity. We believe it's $1 billion opportunity. So we want to keep going for it and really see how big. I'm not thinking about a next business. Like, I'm really passionate about the industry, about what we're doing, and really want to accelerate our growth and try to blow this up, right? So,
yeah. But I don't doubt that if and when you ever start another business, there will be something else going on. Debbie wants to know, how did you encourage your clients to be comfortable to change course and trust connecting with their customers online and moving their business online? Ooh, great question, Debbie.
Andreas, take that one.
Take that one. I don't know if we haven't convinced the entire industry yet, so that's why we're still excited. There's still a lot of this industry that's done through phone and other ways that, aren't what you maybe would think of as a modern way to do business. I think it's, it is about understanding what creates a really clear value prop for your customer. Like what really would move the needle for them, not just a little bit, but like a lot. So, recognizing that if you have enough flexibility in your business, you can now keep more staff on and continue to grow, right? I mean, the story I told about, the COVID person trying to, or that was able to keep their job. I think you really, right? Like you can't just sort of be incrementally better from where they're at. It really has to be a shift and a clear shift so that they see why should they change, right? Because changing behavior is not easy, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, honestly, just like Ibrahim said, maybe this was a little bit of an advantage because everything is going online. So it might have worked in your favor in the long run. Jeff asks, what do you plan to do with your investment? And then he has another question, but.
So we plan to really accelerate growth. I mean, I talked earlier about having the bootstrap mindset and expecting, even till today, right? We're rebuilding the team, but we're trying to fill somewhere between 15 to 20 positions between now and the next 6 months, right? So it was really a realization that, all right, we see the opportunity, we know where we need to go. we could move faster if we had a bit more resources and able to hire the people that we need to really go after this, right? So it's a lot about really hiring and building on top of what we have. And yeah, so a lot of it's investing in people and growth, right? In terms of sales, marketing, biz dev, and yeah, actually every team.
Right. Although, hey, if anyone's looking, hiring.
Right. Revolutionparts.com/careers.
Yeah. Maybe you should get that professor that used to.
Yeah.
Maybe
he's hired, but
yeah.
He might be bored. And I really liked what you said about this expecting Swiss Army knives. I'll take that away. And then his last question was, what were the 2 specific things in the early days that you did that changed the pace of growth? Ooh, yeah.
Andreas,
I think our growth has been very much brick by brick, right? Like it hasn't been this huge inflection point. It's been steady progress throughout the time. And, 7 years into, really starting Revolution Parts, we hit $10 million, right? And I don't know if I can point to this is what we did exactly right. I feel like we definitely went out and battled for every customer and kind of made it happen as a team. Team beyond Ibrahim, right? I mean, the entire team at Revolution Parts making that happen. So I don't know, Ibrahim, if you can reflect on any specific inflection point, but I can't think of one very specifically.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. So, I think a lot of growth has been incremental, helping them sell their website and adding every one channel at a time. I think maybe adding the agency. So one thing that we do is we have a marketing agency within Revolution Parts. It's something that we kept trying to push off because, hey, we want to focus on building the product. I don't want to figure out how to build and run an agency, right? But it became pretty clear to us that this is an essential piece of the puzzle. Like our customers, you can have the best platform, but how are you driving sales to it? And we tried the partner strategy, which was super painful. So it was really clear that we need to bring that in-house. So actually, if our agency was a standalone business, like that alone would be like a $2 million business and one of probably the larger agencies in the Valley that does just marketing. So I think now that we have this investment, we are taking a different approach where, all right, we could keep growing incrementally without needing more money, but now we're going, how do we really look beyond, like how do we make a step level improvement and place their bets in other areas, right?
Ooh. If you could go back in time, Anthony says, what would you have done differently other than possibly raise money sooner? Because I'm not letting you get away with that answer. We already heard that.
That's right.
Yeah, I'll probably say, okay, Andreas can speak too, but I'll probably say investing more, and this is tough because we have been bootstrapped, right? And we're both engineers by trade, so we've tended to really be more inward facing and let's focus on really building. And I think a lot of people are surprised when we have coffee or whatever and talk about the vision and where we want to go with the company. Like, wow, that's really exciting. I had no idea this is happening in Phoenix. So I'd say hadn't made that a bigger focus and kind of building that local brand. And it's not too late, right? So it's something that we want to focus on now. But I would have probably spent more focus on that earlier on.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think as a company, we've been very nose to the grindstone type approach, right? And even as Ibrahim mentioned earlier around sales and marketing, that didn't come natural to us to really go out and hawk our wares, right, early on. And so, if I went back, maybe we would have, focused a little bit more on actually raising more revenue earlier by doing more sales and marketing. Obviously, especially when you're bootstrapped, revenue is the bloodstream, right? And so.
Do you enjoy the business now? Do you find yourself enjoying the business part more? Are you really into the building?
Yeah, I think for me personally, I went from sort of being the CTO, Ibrahim was, always the CEO, but I was really on the technical side. Now I'm more on the strategy, business development, and I was actually telling Ibrahim the other day, like, I'm starting to get that, like, oh God, I just want to really close this deal. I really want to go kill it, So I think that's that's something that I've grown into, that I don't know if when I started out, was really like part of my persona as much. So I'm enjoying that a lot more.
Yeah, the first time I saw you, you were pitching for 1 million cups.
Yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, I remember that.
Well, gentlemen, we are pretty much at our time. I have so appreciated learning your story. I just think it's absolutely amazing how you've 2 kids coming from different sides of the world. Well, over there, coming to ASU just because you wanted to have the real American experience, and creating this amazing company and staying strong through COVID. You should pat yourselves on the back. That's just an amazing story, and what you're doing for Arizona. So we can't wait to share this out for all the people that couldn't make it. And hopefully meet together in person someday soon. Randy, I know I'm ready to cling that wine glass or beer glass with you.
Oh my God, yes.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. No,
Yeah.
really appreciate the opportunity. It was great, and thank you for everybody that spent time listening to us talk. And look forward to hopefully meeting most of you in person soon.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll have to do another happy hour at your place, because this was going to be hosted at Revolution Park. So someday, and this will live on YouTube on the Startup Grind channel. So, well, thank you, gentlemen. Have a wonderful evening, and we will see you all hopefully for the pitch battle on the 30th. If you haven't signed up, just go to startupgrind.com/Phoenix, and we'll see you there.
Cool.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.